So I'm hoping that we are with the mimer. We have at least some sense, some understanding what is being explained. Essentially, identifying sechel at many, many different levels, and pointing out that the difference between these levels is enormous, to the extent that the higher level, relative to the lower level, is like being outside of the parameters of sechel altogether. And yet, this higher level is the source for the lower level of sechel. You guys are up to getting into this?
Why
yes? Why not? Because I don't know if I'm to.
Yeah.
No, I mean, to understand, to get into this thing and the whole of sechel, what is sechel? We have tried, a lot to point out the name from sechel. In principle, see if we are together on this. In principle, clearly we know that there are many madregas coming from the nefesh. The nefesh is a godly presence, which is totally beyond definition. And from this supreme source emanates and comes down ultimately elements that are so minute, so limited, that they can be contained in a body, in a physical case, like in the moyach, that the moyach should sense the sechel, and the sechel becomes one with the moyach to the extent that it functions at the level of the moyach. Think of the following. I mentioned the other day, with your hand you pick up an object. Seems to us to be totally simple and uncomplicated feat. Nothing to speak about. The truth, though, is that this koyach hatnuah, called koyach hatnuah, that is able to grab an object and move it, lift it, and carry it to a specific location and set it the way it should be set. It's a very a huge spread of a koyach, from the highest to the lowest. We have to try and understand, which we discussed many times. The human being picks up an object from one place and puts it in another place. And lahavdil, an animal picks up an object from one place to another. They're carrying an object all the time. I'm not going to ask you the question, I'm going to tell you right away. There's a tremendous difference between these two activities. The human being's action is defined and identified by his sechel. He contemplates first what needs to be done, what he wants to do, and why, and how he's going to do it. And then he goes to do the action as he has planned it out. The animal, on the other hand, seems to be doing the same thing. But its awareness of what it's doing is in a totally different level. This is what we call instinct. The animals are doing phenomenal things, and very smartly. But it's all instinctive. What does instinctive mean?
Lack of choice.
Let me try and explain. Sechel enables a person to identify and do things which have no immediate significance. This can be done. You can even test, is it possible to do this? There's no ramifications for his personal life, for any future gain. Instinct means that he immediately, it relates directly to him, to his situation. I need this object here because I need it here, not because the object should be here. That's instinct. It can be very complex. But it's from that and sechel are two different worlds completely. Like I point out all the time, sight is a representation of chokhmah, of sechel. And what is so special about sight? I would say it represents sechel. It is in the fact that you can relate to an object that is distant from you, that has nothing to do with you, that does not affect you. Just recognize its presence. Recognize its existence. Its existence, not how it affects you. That's on a sechel level. So this Inyan, that this is on the sechel level, becomes very significant when you focus in what the is sechel able to identify, and how come sechel sees things that other faculties don't see. How come a human being can see this and an animal doesn't see? It's the same object, the same world. The phenomenon that the human being, that the sechel, can plan and project things that have no practical ramifications at the moment. Is directly reminding you, pointing to the fact that a human being recognizes that the existence of the world, the existence in general, is way beyond existence, beyond worldly existence. Existence is not dependent on existence, if you follow my words. On being a yesh, on being a tangible thing. Like the Rambam says, the first principle is that there is a first being. This first being is not a being in the worldly sense of the word. It's not visible, it's not tangible, it has no form. It's a being only in the true sense of a pure concept of being, not of a being of presence. It's a motivation, period. We have no concept what it is. And the way we will relate to this motivation, it has been discussed many times, is in two ways. Number one, we recognize that everything that exists is his doing. And number two, our relationship to him is not by knowing him, but by bittul, by submitting and accepting his rule. Like we said, Matan Torah said, Nasev and Yishma. It is due to this recognition that the human mind can project things that don't have a practical presence. Right? Within this whole realm of sechel, where sechel is based entirely, that's what sechel is based on that which is higher than world. This is what gives sechel its sense of reality. I think this general sechel, the Rebbe points out there are many different madrigas, where the lower madriga, the high madriga relative to the lower madriga, is not sechel at all. It's non-existent. Sechel means you identify something. This is not sechel at all. Like sechel knows ruchni, and amahus ruchni is a non-entity from the physical world perspective. And the big thing that occurs is from this highest source all the way to the nefesh and the rotzen ha-nefesh and the sechel as it emanates from the rotzen. Ultimately, it develops downwards to the point where it is mislavish in the moyach, in the brain. And on the brain level, the sechel understands, which means that sechel attributes true presence to something that is totally finite. And it relates to it as a true presence. Like we said, there is mahus even in Gashmias. The discussion about mahus in all present. The seichel can see mahus in Gashmias.
It's not by error that it attributes true presence to something that's
No. The seichel always sees how things come from a higher source, no matter how, at what level it is.
And something, when we say something's finite, almost by definition it lacks true presence. But here, the opposite.
So this is what we pointed out in our Masholim. We have a table right here in this room. The table is definitely a finite entity, very tangible. Is that what the table stands for? The tangible part of it? Is that what we notice with our seichel when we enter the room? To put it extremely simply, you have a table like this, you enter a room like this. What?
I just pictured somebody then getting up and lying down on the table. I mean, where it could be anything.
You enter a room like this, about seichel. In what way does he observe the presence of the seichel on the table? Think about it. Does it observe in terms of how much it weighs? What it took to build it? How much wood is in it? What scale was it? How much room does it occupy? How much does it cost? What attracts him? What does he identify with this table? You know what he identifies with the table? How many people can sit around this table? That's what this table stands for. This is a conference table. How many people can sit around it? And that's what he observes. That's what he sees. Doesn't even see the table. He sees what the table stands for. What is the human concept of this table? And how much is accomplished with it? How many people can accommodate? This Indian, how many people the table can accommodate? Is that the mitzias of the table or is that the mahus of the table? Can you elaborate? I would be so happy if you can.
It doesn't just happen to be there. It's there for an intention. It has a purpose, and it's a human purpose.
True. Even one step deeper than that.
Don't turn that away.
What's the matter with you, Yitzhak?
I don't like him looking at me.
Why not?
It's a thing.
You're famous.
It's a thing. Ah,
It's spying on me.
Yitzchak. It's reporting you wisdom. What's the matter with you? It's giving you credit for your wisdom. It's not spying you on you.
Rabbi Paltiel, can I ask a question about what you're just talking about the table?
Yeah, just 1 second. I just want to finish. Why did you call this mahus?
Because it's not tangible. It has a spiritual place. It has a.
So therefore, it's less presence.
Huh? No, that's the essence. That's the real thing.
How is it the real thing?
Because of
Is it pointing to the reality of the human being? What's fitting for a human being, and this kind of that he's a melech, that he.
If you remember, we asked a question. We talked about cars. And I pointed out the best cars are those who serve the least purpose.
I mean a racing car.
The racing cars. Like you go on straight walls.
Right. But it doesn't take anybody any place.
Right. So we made a point then that the car industry would never have developed if this were the focus of a car.
Right.
What conceptualized the car industry is the human element, not the racing. Nobody conceptualized a motor. They conceptualized a moving vehicle. The motor is like the horse pulling the wagon. When anyone is saying that the horse pulling the wagon, the main thing is the horse, the main thing is not the wagon.
That's putting the wagon before the horse.
Would anybody say the horse is the main thing? Look, what it is, the horse is able to pull the wagon. What an invention. Right? In other words, that which initially conceptualized, which creates this is the mahus of it. This is what gives it the presence. What created this table? The ability to accommodate X number of people at the conference. Not some others. This is its reality. This concept, this term, the mahus of a Dova Gashmi, not the mitzias. Practically speaking, it's a mitzias. It's the size of the table that accommodates 10 people. The mahus, this is a sechel concept, principle. This is the difference whether something occurs inadvertently or something was planned. A human being doing something. The Rebbe is explaining, said, okay, sechel, there are many different madrigas of sechel. In all madrigas, there are two principles. One is that the higher madriga relative to the lower madriga is like not sechel at all, because it's just the reality itself. It's not applying to a mitzias. Sechel is to bring it down to mitzias. And on the other hand, in no madriga it is the sechel identifies with the reality of the mahus. This is phenomenally impressive because it is true at every level. Like I said, a human being picks up an object. If I bring in part starting after the class.
Hold on.
Popcorn in the movies.
Yeah, we're gonna do that after the class.
When a human being picks up an object and moves it from here to here, there is a reality that's taking place. He first conceptualizes this object is out of place over here, or it should be here. And then he moves it. So I started this whole thing about
It didn't go on. I changed the plug.
what?
It didn't go on, so I changed the plug. It's the same.
Oh. We're talking about different madrigas in sechel. I want just to give this following illustration. Everybody, we are laboring over it. Might as well try to identify it. Think about this. If you pick up an object, do we realize what it entails to pick up the object on a human level, not an animal level? Human being, when he picks up the object, yes, he uses his hand to pick up the object. By the time it goes to the hand, it has gone through a whole slew of different gyrations. It initially begins from a concept. Where does this thing belong? Already that does not exist on an animal level. What is the true place for this?
It's interesting. The external action can be the same by an animal, I guess, but
That's right, but it's
By
doing,
the
they're
human-
doing two different things.
by the human being, it's embedded with, or it rides on it, this sort of infinite.
It's under the
Element.
influence and inspiration of a much higher aspect.
Mhm. You may think that externally that would be seen, but it's not always. Externally, these movements can resemble each other. People can even get confused.
Well, I told you the story that it's right there in that talk that I have about instinct versus intellect. I urge you all, if you have a chance, to listen to that talk. It's on the blog. Where, and this is something which I personally saw. Bochrim in 770 were so excited that they could not fathom that. How do you explain this thing? This animal was standing in front of a waterway, of a body of water, and was throwing bait into the water, and the fish would come up to catch the bait, and the animal would catch the fish. Is that sechel?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Those potato dishes.
Huh?
You want me to put in those dishes? Luck?
No, it's fine.
I was curious about a crocodile, so I looked up on the internet, and they had this thing about a crocodile, and they ended by saying, the crocodile is quite intelligent, because when it hunts, it knows how to,
How to hunt.
yeah, it knows how to lure its prey.
Right.
And it was very intelligent.
But even things that are less sort of wondrous, walking, breathing, is great resemblance, and they're qualitatively different. So that's just kind of interesting that things are set up that way.
Okay, fine. So that's what I'm trying to identify here, because in order to understand, but especially what ensues further, understand the principle of sechel is a very unique quality.
Right. Okay.
As I said before, the principle of sechel, as the Rambam says, is based on that existence that is rooted in something higher than existence.
Mm-hmm.
Motzi rishim mamtzi kol nimtzo, amit isi motzi nimtzo kol nimtzo. So one way to demonstrate, there are many ways to demonstrate, but let's project something which we talk about all the time. You see an object from a distance, and you don't feel the urge to go and touch it. I mean, it's not necessary to touch it, I see it. It's clear to me what it is. Even if I were close to it, I wouldn't need to touch it. I would just examine it more closely. What I see is sufficient, is the reality. The animal also sees, also has eyes. Is an exactly identical thing what the animal sees and the human being sees. The animal also sees from a distance. As a matter of fact, he sees from a distance so clearly that he gives chase. Either gives chase or flees. Is it the same thing? What's the difference? Everybody's shaking their head. What's the difference? Baruch, I'm coming to you. No. When the animal, his own mitzias, his own physical presence, verifies the existence of the subject. He sees a subject, like I said all the time. When the animal looks at an object, he sees it from two angles. Is he going to be my breakfast, or am I going to be his breakfast? How's it going to affect me? You cannot see an object on a neutral plane, on no personal significance. It doesn't exist. Verification of everything is based on what it means to me, how it affects me. Human being only is able to see object on this super plane. Because to him, objects are not created by his experience, they're created because they're there, by Creator. This is what gives the sechel, gives object a sense of of a mahus. What's a mahus? A mahus means something that's real independently of its function. Like we gave an example this morning, or the other, this week, all the time. This is something which is extremely significant in your life. You sometimes meet up somebody, and he does everything right, perfectly right, but it's clear he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have a chayes, doesn't have a nefesh. He's like an idiot, but he's working it. He has been trained. He knows what's right to do. And you can't correlate. You can't relate to that. It's a completely different species, completely different reality. Like I said, an example. Imagine a person who has been walking naked, like in the Africa, just walking naked a lifetime. Then he came to society and told him, you can't walk naked. Okay, I'm going to wear clothes. Does he appreciate wearing clothes the same way as a person who grew up in clothes? Who understands that walking without clothes, like Odom immediately sense that this is not the right way. This is an insult to the human being.
Does that explain how Balchuvas look at things?
You know, I'll explain to you. Balei Tshuva I'll jump up a little bit. Little girls are put on very short skirts, and they naturally feel uncomfortable. Because naturally, a girl wants to be sneezed. But over a period of time, she gets used to it. I remember distinctly. This was in the papers when I was talking about when they started cutting the skirts in the street over here. Slowly they were cutting the skirts, and people were saying it'll take a little time for women to get used to it. You can draw. The human being remains the same human being. There's no question about it. Like I said, the man in the gutter is the same human being. But he's not aware of it. He made himself not aware of it. But the real human being is the same. So Baal Tshuva is like this. They really were supposed to be in all the Torah. That's where they belong. But they were torn away from there, and they were blocked off from that view for many, many years until they forgot where they really belong. And they think this is where they belong, but it's not where they know it. But once they explode, they know this is not where I belong. Baruch, I can talk on this for 3 nights, so...
I'm amazed you still remembered me.
Really?
Yeah, well, but at the end of this, you were coming back to my question.
Go ahead.
And you may not like this question because it's going back to something we talked about before.
Okay, no, I like you. Every question. Go ahead.
So we're talking now about the mahus on the table is that you know what's real mahus. How many people can you sit around this table for a conference or a dinner, ever, right? So we, in a previous Gilgul, spoke about a lot. Now we're talking about the difference between mahus and metzius. And then in this previous Gilgul, we were talking about the difference between, I guess, essence and function. So I'm trying to understand the table. We're saying the mahus, and mahus sounds a lot like essence.
Right.
Whereas when we describe the mahus of the table, we're describing its essential function. I guess it's a funny way of putting the word together, but that's what it is really.
Right.
It's essential function, but it is a function.
Right.
So how does this fit together?
All right. So here's how it fits together, and here's how it's actually pointing to the very same thing. We explained many times, a table may be a physical structure, and it may be very convenient. But really the table was conceptualized in the human soul. And within the human soul was conceptualized in a very fine aspect, and that is dignity. Kavod is one of the finest qualities in general that the Rebbe put into the world. As you could see, that the world that decided they want to be worldly, they say, pants are not torn are too bekovedik. I have to tear them up so that they fit into my world. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Can somebody explain?
I see it every day
There's
my students at the law school.
clothing that's already ripped.
It's better than the other one where they
Huh?
wear clothing around their knees.
It's absolutely
And
real.
oddly enough, most of the people who wear these ripped jeans are women, not men.
And they pay for them. They pay it. They buy
Oh yeah,
them out of
they
the
have
store,
special ways of ripping
Now,
them.
just it's related to your other example about the girls who are wearing the short skirts and constantly pulling them down.
Right. So this is it's a perverted way of thinking, but this is not the reality. In other words, COVID is a real thing in a human being. But
So coming back to essence versus mahus.
okay, coming back to the essence. Okay, so here's the thing: the essence of a table, I said, is really a concept in the human mind, and that concept in the human mind originates with what position that Abraham has assigned the human being in the world. The Rebbe made the human being stand up on 2 feet rather than crawl on all fours. What's significant of that? We spoke about it many times. Anybody?
So he can see the Shemayim and the earth all at once.
True, no, but on a lower level than that. Huh?
Saying, why does he stand up?
Yeah, what's the significance of standing up on 2 feet rather than crawl on fours?
He's not earth-bound. He's held up by his head.
That's why it is not world-bound. He's in the world and independent of the world. That's this godly creature called the human being. And this is where the table originates. What is the table? Table means, yes, I have to hold this thing, but I'm not going to hold it. It's going to stand there somehow automatically. Be held up for me. This concept is what created the table in the first place. This is the original concept that created the table. Therefore, this is the mahus of the table. This is the reality. This is what gives it a reality, a spirit of reality.
So the mahus of the Gashmi is what the essence looks like when it gets into this world.
That's right. Like we said the other day, we talked about cars. Everybody understood that the mahus of a car is not its motor, and not the wheels, not the fact that it can go on a certain speed, not its technical structure. It is the human element. This is what created it.
So why then do we say, when we were talking about function previously, in comparison to essence, function was sort of, I don't know what you'd say, secondary, insignificant. But now function does seem to have, as long as it's the essential function, it does seem to have a reality.
Right. So here's the answer to your dilemma. Function is the expression of the essence. In other words, when we take this the essence of this of a car, the essence of a table, and you translate it on the lower level, in the kelim level, it becomes a function. This is why the oil is mislabish in a keli. But as the oil is mislabish in a keli, we are constantly pointing out that this is the lower level of the oil which is mislabish in the keli. But the higher level of the oil is a completely different higher level.
Okay, I'm going to grapple with that for a while.
All right.
Thank you.
And this is what explains, but the Rebbe is explaining completed so far, that the madreges in sechel, where the lower madrege, the high madrege relative to the lower madrege, is like being not sechel at all. What then is it? It's mahus nefesh. It's a super reality. A nefesh reality. Okay?
You're also saying this is where all sechel, what we call sechel, this is where all of that comes from.
That's right. Can you imagine, and I started saying about the hand, the gyrations that the seichel goes through from the higher level where say there's a right place for things. There's a place where things rightfully belong. And then there's a koyach in the hand that is able to maneuver things and place them in the right place. I don't know if I have you with me, but this is what we're dealing with over here. The mahus of sechel, but on gashmis. Like I pointed out, that mitzad, the real inyan of mahus gashmi, a piece of real estate does not have a monetary value. It cannot be estimated as to what its value is, because it's a reality. All right, so still have to jump into the next section, but we will interrupt for the Fabrengen. Right, that's what decided.
Ayin